And we'll go to Brussels first. Agence France Presse.
Hi, Laurent Thomé with Agence France Presse. U.S. Defense Secretary Gates this morning had pretty blunt words for NATO allies, warning that their years of dwindling, shrinking military budgets are putting the alliance's very future at risk. And he also warned that the Libya mission is put at risk by this lack of investment and commitment. And he pointed out that the US is forced to provide munitions for allies because their munitions are running short. Do you believe that the mission can really be sustained without more contributions? And how short are the allies of these munitions?
Let me take that question, Laurent. As you heard the Secretary General saying yesterday, after the meeting of the NATO defense ministers, he himself has called on allies to broaden support for our operation in Libya. We do have the resources that we need. We also need to ensure that this is a sustainable operation. But when we extended this operation by 90 days, an extension that was endorsed by defense ministers at their meeting this week, allies and partners also made a clear commitment to provide the necessary assets to continue this operation at a high operational tempo. We have to see that there is the necessary solidarity in the alliance and to broaden support as much as possible so that we give commanders on the ground all the assets and the flexibility that they need. This is a call that the Secretary General made himself at the meeting of foreign ministers in Berlin in April, and that was a call that allies and partners responded to, as you have seen since that meeting. So we are confident that they are listening both to Secretary Gates and to the NATO Secretary General, and they have shown the commitment to see this mission through. Laurent.
Yes, but without these commitments, how long can this mission go on? No one so far has made any pledges, and you're running short of munitions. You're depending on the US. So how long can this be sustained? Especially with Norway saying that they're thinking of scaling back if this goes on beyond June.
Well, the United States, of course, is providing unique and essential capabilities, but this is a team effort, and it is non-US allies and partners that are sharing much of the burden in this operation, and all allies and partners gathered here in Brussels at the meeting of defense ministers have endorsed the extension of the mission by 90 days, and they have made clear that they will commit all the resources that are necessary to sustain this operation for as long as it takes. Wall Street Journal.
That's Stephen Fiddler from the Wall Street Journal. Just to follow up on that, a broader point that Secretary Gates seemed to be making was that essentially the US is subsidizing European defense, and that the attachment of the US to NATO is one of that maybe is something that means something to his generation, but a new generation is coming along and to which it means less to. I mean, does the Secretary General share the view of US subsidy of European allies, and is he also concerned that the US attachment to the alliance may weaken as time goes by?
Stephen, you've been following this Secretary General's speeches for long enough to know that this is a concern that he himself has voiced earlier this year. You heard his speech at the Munich Security Conference about security in an age of austerity. You may have seen subsequent speeches in Bratislava, in Varna recently. There is clearly a long-standing concern about the transatlantic gap in defense spending. There is a risk that European allies may fall even further behind in terms of technological development because of low levels of defense spending. Obviously, we all know that there is an economic and financial crisis ongoing, and in a period when all parts of national budgets are being cut, defense budgets cannot be exempt, which is why the Secretary General has made a very clear appeal for smart defense, which means not that we can spend more because the money just isn't there, but that we can spend better. And that is by pooling and sharing resources, by taking part in multinational projects, and that is an appeal that he has made also during his trip to the United States. And what he made clear in the United States is that NATO is a team effort. If you look at our operation in Libya, where most of the ships and planes involved come from non-US allies and partners, and also if you look at our operation in Afghanistan, where the surge was made up by 30,000 American troops, backed up by 10,000 troops from non-US allies and partners. But clearly, this is a team effort that has to be sustained.
Yes, Gérard Gaudin, Belgian News Agency. I've been told twice last week that there will be shortly a shortage of target according to the legitimate target according to the UN Security Council resolution. Is that a concern for you?
Mike, one for you.
Yeah, I mean, from an operational perspective, we will continue targeting to protect the civilian population. So when there's no more attacks on the civilian population, we'll know there's no more targets. It's really as simple as that. While they're still being attacked, there must be targets out there. Oana, do you want to add anything?
No, I think that's an operational answer to an operational question. I think we can go over to Naples now, Mike, for our colleagues with you there.
Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? No questions from Naples.
We'll go to Lorenzo first.
Yeah, Consul from TM News. I was there when the Secretary General yesterday and the other day repeated this message that you repeated also today, Oana, on the fact that the Allies have committed themselves to go on with this mission for 90 more days, and then they will be, of course, available for, they will give availability of more assets and more flexibility. But the fact is that until now, we didn't have any positive answer to this. We actually had a very clear no from, at least from one country, Spain, and the other countries which were clearly targeted by, in particular, the Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates, at my knowledge, didn't give any answer. So are you still hoping that the answer will come from these member states in the next days, and what if it doesn't?
Obviously, Lorenzo, this is a national decision, first and foremost. But as you know very well, what happened this week in Brussels was a meeting of NATO defense ministers. This was not a pledging conference. It was not a fourth generation conference. So this is the sort of decision that governments have to discuss with their parliaments, as they have to. This is an alliance of democracies, after all. So there was no expectation of an instant response. What we did see, though, was a very clear commitment from all allies and all partners around the table to endorse the extension of the mission by 90 days and to commit to providing the resources that are necessary to see the mission through. Stephen.
A couple of questions for Mike. The US says that it's Secretary Gates made a reference to this again today that Europe or the allies seem to lack command and control capability, the capability to sort of watch a target and convert that into a strike. Clearly there are things that Europeans can't do that the US is doing because it says it's only providing what's essential and what only it can do. So I'd like to ask you what you, looking at this mission, what you see as Europe not being able to do that the US is now doing. So in other words, what capabilities that Europe doesn't have that the US does have? That's my first question, and I have a question related to intelligence and whether defectors from the regime have been providing any targeting intelligence and what you can tell us about that process if that is happening.
Okay, I'll try and attempt to answer the first one, where you're talking about capabilities. I suppose the bonus from being at the operational end here is we operate with the assets that are available to us. So as nations come forward and say they'll provide an asset, and we don't really mind where that comes from, the commander will look each 24-hour period at the assets that he's got available to him. He'll assess the targets that have been approved, and he will apply those assets to deliver the mission and to carry out the mandate. So I suppose from our perspective at the operational end, we like any methodical planner, look at what we've got and how we can deliver the mission. So we don't see the capability gaps that you're referring to because we deliver the mission. I think the other part you asked about was the use of any information from, you referred to them as defectors. All I'll say is that any military campaign relies on something that we call fused information. So we will take information from every source we can. And if we get information from a press conference in Rome, or we get information from somebody passing secondhand, we'll get information from open source on the internet, we'll get Twitter, you name any source of media, and our fusion center will deliver all of that into usable intelligence that the commander will assess as what he can use, what he can trust, and the experience of the operators, the intelligence officers, and the trained military personnel and civilian support staff will give him those options. And he will decide, that's good information, I'm going to act on it. So where it comes from, again, it's not relevant to the commander. He will use all that is available to deliver his mission and to deliver the mandate. Thank you.
Stephen has a follow-up.
Just to follow up, let me ask the first question in a slightly different way then. If only European assets were available, what things that NATO is now doing would it not be able to do?
I think, Stephen, you've answered your own question to a certain degree, is if it was only European, we have a coalition, a partnership here with NATO and other nations. I've already mentioned that the commander was thanking Qatar. We have European nations and we have the United States on side. So I'm not even going to speculate on whether we could or could not operate without them. This is a combined effort by a large number of nations within NATO and within our partners, and we're able to deliver. Thank you.
I think I'll take two more follow-ups at the front. Laurent?
CNN has reported, citing a senior NATO military official, that basically NATO believes that the UN resolution justifies targeting Gaddafi because as head of the military, he is part of the command and control structure. Is this a view you share?
Let me take this one, Laurent. And let me make this very clear. NATO does not target specific individuals. We do target critical military capabilities. that could be used to attack civilians, including command and control centers that could be used to plan and organize such attacks. Our operation fully complies with the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1973, which authorizes all necessary means to end attacks and the threat of attack against civilians and civilian-populated centers.
CNN is citing, I mean, this is a pretty reputable news organization. Does this mean that there's dissent within NATO about that view, whether Gaddafi is a legitimate target or not? Are there people within NATO that believe he should be targeted?
I'm not going to comment on the reputability of CNN. What I do notice is that this is an anonymous source, and you have here standing in front of you a named source, which is the NATO spokesperson. And as the NATO spokesperson, I can tell you on the record that NATO does not target specific individuals. We do target critical military capabilities that can be used to attack civilians, including command and control centers that plan and coordinate those attacks against civilians, because these are the nerve center of Gaddafi's killing machine. And as you've seen, we have kept up a very high operational tempo with over 10,000 sorties since the start of this mission, and we have damaged or destroyed over 1,800 critical, legitimate military targets, including some 100 command and control centers. Lorenzo, last question.
I think it's for Naples. I would like to have some more details on the attacks carried out by helicopters in Brega, if I understood well. Can you please tell us what the objectives were and how many helicopters were employed and what the result was of this?
Okay, I mean, I'm not going to be difficult here. We don't talk about specific tactics, and throughout the whole campaign we've not talked about specific numbers of fast jet aeroplanes or specific numbers of any type of asset that is at the disposal of the commander. What I will say is that attack helicopters were employed by the commander last weekend on Saturday morning, and now they are part of the set of assets that he has available to him. And he will use those assets alongside the fast jets and the bombing aircraft, the aircraft that are used to deliver leaflets, as and when he thinks it's appropriate. So the mission will be decided on, and then he will use the best asset for that particular mission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you very much to everybody in Naples, and thank you very much for you for coming here at the end of this fairly long week at NATO. See you next week.